Welcome. I'm Norma Fernandez. I'm the CEO of EveryoneOn, which is a national nonprofit that is dedicated to unlocking social and economic opportunity by connecting, in particular, under-resourced people to affordable high-speed internet, computers, and digital skills trainings. I'm so honored to do two things that I just truly enjoy doing today. One is, of course, talking about digital inclusion and specifically how digital inclusion is a vehicle for thriving communities. And two, talking with fellow leaders about digital inclusion. Today, I'm joined by Kathy Patoff from Union Bank and Billy Hensley from the National Endowment for Financial Education, who will introduce themselves in a couple of minutes. And we're going to be talking about the role of diverse organizations to drive digital equity. And in the process, how do we increase access to essential services, including financial services? So excited that I get to do these two things today alongside Kathy and Billy. And before we proceed, I'd like to share some definitions to really help frame today's discussion. Since the pandemic and because of the pandemic, the terms digital divide, digital inclusion, digital equity have been used extensively and sometimes interchangeably. So we at EveryoneOn have adopted the following definitions from the National Digital Inclusion Alliance to really describe the work. And if you're not familiar with NDIA, you're new to the digital inclusion world, highly encourage you to check out NDIA. EveryoneOn is a member, and it's a great network of organizations that are really looking to drive digital equity. So let me just define some of these terms for you and really, again, frame the conversation. The digital divide is the issue, right? So the gap between those people that have access to the technologies, the trainings that they need, and those that do not have access to those things. Digital equity is the work. That's the goal, what we're aiming for, to ensure that there's equitable access to the internet, to computers, tech support, digital skills trainings, opportunities. Digital equity, the work. Digital inclusion is the work that we do. That's to drive awareness and adoption of affordable connectivity programs, of digital skills trainings, of getting devices out to people. So just want to make sure we're level setting on the definitions. Again, the digital divide is the issue, digital equity is the goal, and digital inclusion is the work that we're doing. Now, we'd actually like to know who's joining us today. So we're going to launch a poll to just get to know a little bit about you. We could take a second to answer this poll. And as we're waiting for the poll results, just want to remind everyone to please drop any questions in the Q&A box. Okay, do we have the results from the poll? All right. So who's in the room? 17% of you are new to digital inclusion. So welcome. I'm so happy you're joining us. A few of you are Union Bank employees. Some of you are already doing, actually the majority of you, 40%, are already doing digital inclusion work, either with the library or nonprofit. Almost 25% of you are local and state government staff, which is great. Welcome. A few of you are academics or researchers, and there's an other, almost 30%. I'm curious of the other. Maybe we'll find out more later. Well, let's jump into me, Kathy and Billy. I do want to mention that our work at EveryoneOn is really fueled by cross-sector collaboration, and we're lucky to have the support of Union Bank and the National Endowment for Financial Education. And I'm just thrilled to be joined by these two wonderful individuals who really understand the value of digital equity as a means to also help improve financial inclusion and wellness for all. Kathy, can you please introduce yourself and share what's one takeaway you want the audience to have today?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Norma. I'm thrilled to be here with you and Dr. Hensley this morning. My name is Kathy Padoff, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for MUFG Union Bank. I am based out of San Diego and focus our work on our philanthropy and community engagement. And really today I'd like for our participants to really appreciate that investments in digital inclusion are fundamental to financial inclusion and helping all communities prosper and build wealth. Looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you. And Billy, the same. Please share who you are and a takeaway you have for our audience.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Billy Hensley. I'm the president and CEO of the National Endowment for Financial Education, or NEFE, as we call ourselves, if you're new to us. It's such a mouthful of a name, so NEFE is much easier. I started at NEFE almost 13 years ago in research, and we were trying to build better data and more thoughtful information about financial education, everything from the effectiveness of it, and improving that, and understanding the framework within which we live our financial lives, and that it's not so clear, cut and dry, sort of a one-time webinar class and so forth. And we've come a long way in what we've understood about personal finance and financial education, and how that sits within the broader financial lives, if you will. And for me, anytime I participate in a webinar or speak at an event, I want people to leave the room, leave the event with better information and data, so that they can more strongly advocate for the work they're doing. I think data tell a story, whether it's qualitative or quantitative data, but it empowers and strengthens the arguments that we can make to funders who support your work, to policymakers, or to those who can benefit directly from the services.
Great, thank you, Billy. And you're right, data is critically important, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. And of course, we're also interested in understanding what drove you or audience members to join us today. So we're going to launch one more poll just to get a sense of what you're also interested in learning about today, and what drove you to join us. So we could launch the poll. Do we have poll results? Wonderful. So understand the connection between digital and financial literacy. Yes, hoping to address that. Learn more about digital equity and why it matters. Find out how to support digital inclusion efforts. Yes, we definitely want to highlight our partnerships, and certainly learn best practices for cross-sector partnerships as well. So we will try to address these as much as possible. And of course, feel free to add comments and questions specifically in the Q&A, and any comments that may resonate with you. If you want to add something that you think is going to be helpful, useful, etc., please add that to the chat as well. Well, let's kick off the conversation, and to do that, I want to share a little bit about our work at EveryoneOn, and we all know has been demonstrated in the last 3 years. It has just been absolutely essential that all communities, and in particular under-resourced households, have access to high-speed internet and computers. It's also critical that folks have the skills. That is just essential building block to driving broadband adoption and access to financial services, for example. But not just having the skills, also really the confidence to leverage the internet and leverage the computers and smartphones and any other devices that they may have at home, because really these are universal tools. And we know, based on the American Community Survey, that up to 18 million households in the US, and that's across rural, suburban, urban communities, still do not have reliable broadband. And in a recent national survey that EveryoneOn conducted, we learned that 55% of those that were surveyed, which were households that make under $50,000 a year, were not confident. That's 55% survey respondents were not confident in their digital skills ability to find or access diverse online services. And we really must fix this. We all know that the internet is a universal tool that facilitates access to financial services, employment opportunities, educational resources, telemedicine, telehealth, and so much more, but also because we cannot talk about social and financial inclusion and equity without addressing the digital divide. Since 2010, EveryoneOn has implemented a variety of digital initiatives with national reach and local impact, including hosting events in communities to get people connected to subsidized or low-cost internet service. We've donated computers, thousands of computers to K-12 households. We've provided hundreds, especially in the last 2 years, hundreds of virtual and in-person digital skills trainings to diverse communities. And we've also hosted hundreds of capacity building trainings for organizations like nonprofits, libraries, advocacy groups, and others who are really looking to dive into the digital inclusion world. And of course, we know that the pandemic put a spotlight on the digital divide, and now we have an opportunity to address it in a much more thoughtful and impactful manner that leads to more people being able to gain access to critical resources and information. So at EveryoneOn, we really doubled down our work with support from companies like Union Bank. And as federal funds from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act become available to tackle broadband adoption, affordability, computers, and digital skills trainings, there are a few things that stand out to us that we believe are important to consider and highlight. And I'd love to hear from Kathy and Billy as we get into the fireside chat of this webinar, how this may resonate with you and the efforts that your respective organizations are taking on to really support digital and financial inclusion. And also love to hear the audience thoughts about this as well. Russell, can we bring up my slide, please? And these highlights are not specific to EveryoneOn. We know other organizations across industries and those that are working on digital inclusion are observing the same things, and they're certainly not exhaustive. But we wanted to highlight these four in particular because they're relevant to our conversation today. One is, as we continue as a society to address the digital divide, there's going to be a significant focus on making sure that infrastructure is in place, options for internet service are affordable, that we're making sure K-12 households in particular have students have computers, which is great, but we cannot forget about the digital skills trainings as a component, as a puzzle, or a piece of a digital equity puzzle, but also because it's part of the conversation when we think about how folks are accessing digital services. So we need to ensure folks have access to and are participating in digital skills trainings, because really this will help improve broader health, educational, economic outcomes. And I'll give you a little bit more context. In the national research that I referenced a few minutes ago, we learned that compared to those with low levels of digital skills, those with higher skill levels are more likely to have used new applications and less likely to say they have difficulty using them. Moreover, in a recent survey that we conducted with digital skills trainings that we're providing to parents in Los Angeles with funding from Union Bank, we learned a few things from women, from the participants. First of all, we learned that more than 80% of our digital skills participants are women. And they're specifically African-American, Black, and Latina women. And when we asked them questions about their skills, digital skills ability, this is what the women said. We surveyed 33 of them. More than 80% of those participants said that 90% said they do not know how to search for opportunities for continuing education like GED or college courses. 70% said they don't know how to compose an email. That's pretty significant. And another 20 or so percent said they knew a little bit of how to do that. And 70% also say they do not know how to use an online bank account to manage their services, their finances, excuse me. And right now the students are in the middle of their training. So we're hoping post training survey that we will see progress against each of these initial questions that we asked them relative to their confidence in using the internet to access critical services. So I think, that's 2. 3, cross-sector collaboration and sustainable investment are critical to ensure that we really move the needle. And there really needs to be investment beyond government to really create sustainable digital inclusion programs that are long-term and that create also long-lasting change. There's an opportunity to partner with corporations, philanthropic groups, and others to really bring to bear resources, data, ability to your point, and knowledge to reach even more people and increase access. Our partnership with Union Bank is an example of that. Okay, so plenty of talk from me. Let's really jump in and hear from Billy and Kathy. And a reminder to everybody to just add any questions and comments along the way. Definitely want to get to them. Billy, can you paint the landscape for us, right? I've talked about digital skills training. Want to hear about how, from your perspective, from the work that you all do, how this digital inclusion conversations are really also affecting how we think about the financial literacy and inclusion landscape, and especially as it relates to under-resourced communities.
Couldn't find my unmute button. Let me go back to the slide here. Now, is everyone seeing the full screen, or are you seeing the display? Is that better?
We're seeing your full screen. Yes.
Full screen, just the one slide. Okay.
Oh, excuse me. No, we're seeing your notes, I think.
Okay. I'd always do that backwards. Okay. I think, is it right now? Just the one? Okay,
yes,
perfect. So I wanted to set the landscape a little bit about some national data on sort of sentiment and then effectiveness and impact, and talk about this. But first, when I came to NEFE, within a couple of years, a lot of the events I would attend, in particular research or maybe some policy or government focused discussions, they were spending a lot of time talking about unbanked, underbanked, and the role of financial technology in particular, or access to financial technology in order to become banked or interact with more mainstream financial services. And when you think about this as a sort of a Venn diagram, the 2 big circles where they have the overlap. If you think about all of those who are unbanked, or primarily are interacting with predatory lending services, and then those who do not have access to quality broadband or any kind of sort of digital tools that are modern or safe. And then when you overlap those 2 populations, you are at the height of vulnerability when it comes to financial stability, financial literacy, financial education, and just plain access to safe products. And that topic came up a lot. And what I've seen in this sort of arc of change in our community, in particular with financial education, is that financial technology has come a long way. Banks are investing a lot in this space, either through their Community Reinvestment Act dollars or directly with the products that they provide. Credit unions as well. And then those who are providing financial education have come a long way. Now, I'm usually, when I say those providing financial education, I mean like a teacher at a school or a college or a community setting or a local advocate, or those that are providing financial coaching and counseling, like maybe through faith institutions. So when you think about a person in a captive audience or a group or a one-on-one setting, that's who I'm typically meaning when I use that definition. And but a lot of the tools and resources have really transitioned from paper to online and interactive, web-based. People can track their progress as they're learning. So, log in and sort of get an assessment or a score. You see examples. So we've come a long way in our the tools we're using to educate. But then, let's paint another picture here. First of all, I want you to sort of look at these data on the sentiment. We did a poll this past spring in 2022, and we asked a sample of the US population, do you think that every student in high school should be required to take a full semester or a full year course in financial education? 88% of Americans, which is a huge number. I mean, there's very few things that we all agree on at this level that people should take this. And this is the actual question you see here that we asked. And then the second question, do you wish you were required to complete a semester or year-long course? 80% said they themselves wish that. Now, when you think about why that is, it's probably because they have faced a very swiftly changing financial landscape. Financial services has changed. And then just in my own working career, I'm a Gen Xer. In my own career, when I joined the workforce in the 90s, it has changed significantly into the shift of responsibility and how you manage your retirement assets. In the 80s, 70s, 60s, a lot of people had pensions or some kind of pension type product through their work. And we've now had to become our CFO of our own financial life and all the decisions and knowledge necessary to sort of navigate that system. And I would think that a lot of people are saying that they wish they themselves had it, as they have had to learn how to navigate the system. And then even more so, we asked a different poll about, have you had the opportunity to take financial education? And we do talk about this a little bit with sort of digital access and so forth as well. But I just wanted to give you high-level numbers here. About half of US adults that had the opportunity to take some sort of financial education course through their work, either through a course that they sought out themselves or maybe through as a captive audience, a student or college student, if you will. And some people were able to select multiples here. These numbers aren't very encouraging if you think about that there are 330 million of us, and only about half actually had the opportunity to take those classes. And then those that did, you're starting to see that these numbers start to shrink. And when you think that, how few people actually go on to college and maybe not have access to this, it's troubling. And so when we have digital access and we start to put everyone on, if you will, if you pardon the pun here, or maybe celebrate the pun, you will begin to open this up more as we become more sophisticated in our delivery of this. And all the research is clear on what the benefits are here. And, I think this is a friendly audience. You know the benefits here. Just some more information about, a recent meta-analysis of 76 independent financial education randomized experiments show the strength and the effectiveness of what this does. And it's things like better borrowing, lower revolving debt, higher credit scores, and what that does to a financial life when you launch your life that way, or even have access to these things in life. And so, we've put together a few actions here about what does it mean about, having better data. My job at NEFE is to assure better data. I work every day to assure that we have better data. And what that means is samples that are representative of who we are, not just sort of the middle average of people who are taking the survey. We're trying to oversample people of color. We're trying to oversample LGBTQ individuals to get a better sense of what's happening there, so that number of 88% goes to 100%. We have a lot of people who have experienced financial trauma, who have been excluded from FinEd, or there's a lot of shame that in the past that's been used in financial education. And we all know those big personalities who shame individuals about maybe decisions they've made about student debt and things, instead of just, let's move forward and let's help you navigate the system that exists. And while at the same time advocating for a better system, a better financial system. But, we wanted to share some action steps and outcomes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But one thing that I want you to see and consider here is that we've created a personal finance ecosystem, and digital access and what that means is embedded in every component of what this means. You've got the knowledge influencers like the work we do and we advocate for, the foundational factors like opportunities and economic mobility and your value and belief system and what does that mean for your financial life, as well as what influences behavior and the social structures that are either empowering movement or inhibiting movement. Whether that's racism, whether that's historic predatory lending practices, or whether that's the thing that NEFE has been talking about a lot, the limited access to quality financial education. And these numbers are changing in the right direction. We're now at 15 states that have passed legislation that are requiring every student in a public school to take a course in financial education to graduate. So hopefully we're starting to bridge this. But within just, these data are about 2 years old now, but only 3% of students from a low-income community or school district, or a school that's predominantly a school with students of color, even had access to a curriculum that offered this and required them to take it, compared to nearly 20% of students who are white or from more wealthy school districts. And we think that this mandate, this access to quality fin ed in the classroom is a good equalizer to at least launch from high school with the minimum knowledge necessary. And the way our peers who provide financial education program are doing this, it's largely on the tablet, in the classroom, and when you're doing homework. This bleeds into the family and what's happening there. The data are really clear on that as well. But this is all intertwined. For financial education to truly be as effective as possible, this ecosystem needs to be considered in terms of structural policy changes, as well as access to the digital tools and resources necessary to not only learn the topic, but to be able to apply what you know through the products and services that are offered and available, and hopefully better and safer products. So that's kind of a big toss of information at you, and we can get to specifics soon. And we have lots of data on all these polls on our website, and I would encourage you to go there, nefe.org, and use all of this information to sort of help make the case for your own work locally.
Thank you so much, Billy. That really painted it was a broad stroke, but detailed enough to really highlight how all of these things are really correlated. And also the overlap with those that are unbanked, underbanked, or just not using the tools with those that are also being affected by the digital divide, right? And predominantly low-income households, communities of color is also what I heard. Thank you for painting that landscape. Kathy, let's turn it over to you. I imagine some of these things that Billy was talking about have become priorities for Union Bank, or have been priorities for Union Bank. Tell us about Union's Bank decision to invest in digital inclusion work, and you all are supporting our work, which is great. So can you tell us, what made that? What case was it that you all built to invest in digital inclusion?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Norma. So, we have long had a focus on some key strategic areas, and certainly economic development is a component of that strategy. And we have made some investments in digital inclusion, but those investments have largely been through some after-school program, workforce centers, and the like. So if we, look back a little bit to March 2020, which seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't, here was COVID, and the world fundamentally shifted, and certainly the communities that we're touching and impacted have fundamentally shifted. And when COVID became our daily reality, the bank and the foundation made a commitment initially to focus on small business, because we saw the immediate impact, especially in low and moderate income communities, and then into communities of color. And then we also invested in social services as well. But as days became weeks, and weeks became months, and months, progressed into several years, And we moved from the end of a school year through the summer into the beginning of a school year. We really began to see the critical impact of digital access. And it's one of those topics where you know it, we've appreciated it, we've made some investments, but COVID really shined a light on the issue and the cascade effect that an absence of digital inclusion creates for low-income communities and communities of color. And so after we moved through our initial investment around small business and social services, we began to look in 2020, at the end of 2020 and 21, where was the next place that we should have an infusion of resources to try to address some of these issues, again, that we knew were there, but hadn't really focused on, that COVID really shined a light on. And so it was with that we decided to make an investment in digital literacy. And certainly there's a strong component and connection to banking as well, right? It came to us in how it was affecting children and schooling, but we've long known that there's a critical connection to digital financial literacy in the financial services world. And to name a few of those, certainly digital literacy is important to achieving financial inclusion, has a critical role in reducing poverty. Certainly with digital literacy, there's lower chances for our banking customers to make costly mistakes or becomes victims of fraud. We know that more financial literacy and access to digital literacy helps people with better job planning, investing, and saving for their future. And then also that low moderate income individuals and families can widen their options for banking transactions. And as an example, I know one of my colleagues, Sam Assail, who's one of our senior leaders in our consumer lending group, knows that if people want to be able to see and understand the array of residential lending and mortgage products, right? To be able to go online and get that information and find out about down payment assistance programs and understand where you can get some home ownership counseling and access those services and just signing documents, right? So that's all interconnected and really important to our work. So that's really what got us to make the initial investment. And we're really enjoying and appreciating the journey and the impact that we're having.
Thank you, Kathy. And I understand you had a slide to share. Do you want to share that now?
I would. So this also, well, I think Jessica was going to share it. I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing here and not tripping up over anyone.
Yes, I think we'll share it on our end.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, great. Yes, I thought this was an excellent slide that really showcased what's happening, in the world of banking. I'm going to go back to the slide. We're getting there. There you go. Okay, great. So, as I mentioned, that COVID had a fundamental impact on, digital inclusion and digital access. And but this slide really shows what was going on, has been going on in the banking world in particular. And digital adoption was occurring well before COVID, but you can see some pretty substantial changes here. That digital banking adoption moved from about 50%, 57% of individuals doing mobile app and online work pre-COVID to 70%, after COVID. And then you'll see that there's differences between different generations and digital adoption. So the Gen Z moved from 59% to 70%, millennials from 58% to 76%, Gen Xers from 59% total to 72%, and boomers to 54% to 67%, right? So these are fundamental shifts in consumer behavior. And so as consumer behavior changes and evolves, certainly the products and services and the delivery of financial services will evolve as well. And so through this evolution, we certainly don't want individuals who do not have access to fall behind. as the population generally and the financial services industry evolves and adapts to this changing consumer behavior. So what has been happening in education and healthcare field and the like is also happening over in the financial services industry, and that's why it becomes so critically important. So when we had an opportunity to make an investment, we really began to think about what organization could we really look to drive some resources effectively into community, right? So speaking specifically to our investment in EveryoneOn and why it made sense for us to deliver resources in the way we did. Number one, leadership with any organization is very, very important, right? So with Norma, we had an opportunity with you to engage in early conversations of, we're beginning to see more clearly this issue. Tell us a little bit more around the work that you're doing, and how can we work together without us coming in with a prescribed approach, working with our partner to say, what can this look like? How can we make an impact? And you had experience in a myriad of component parts of kind of the delivery channels and the ecosystem that Dr. Hensley was speaking about, right? So through EveryoneOn, we realized that we could achieve many things to address the issues that we were seeing in community. The first one was that we could leverage federal programs that were available to communities and help more people have access in a meaningful way. So just getting that information and doing that leverage work through a hotline was critically important. The second great opportunity we have here through this partnership is the partnership that EveryoneOn has with other nonprofits, this train the trainer approach, right? In cross-sector collaborations, we know that no one organization, no one funder, no single government program can address all the various issues out there. So the fact that EveryoneOn trains other nonprofits and works with other nonprofits so that they're familiar with programs that are out there to support families was a real important component for us. The third component was actual hardware distribution. It's great to be able to have access, but if you don't have the equipment to be able to hop online, then and the resources to do that, that's very problematic. So the distribution of computers to families is critically important to us. And then fourth, from a programmatic perspective, the capacity to train individuals. If you can give a young person a computer and they go home and their parent can't actually get on and help them, or if the student is needing some extra help in connecting with their teachers, if an adult can't make that connection, that's very challenging. And again, if you know that your financial institution has products and services online, but you don't know how to get to those products and services, you're really at disadvantage from that perspective. And then the final thing I would point out is that for us, we have a broad, extensive reach throughout California. So to be able to work with EveryoneOn and have tentacles throughout the state, to be able to affect communities not only in Northern California, but down into Los Angeles and then down into San Diego, was very important for us to make sure that we were reaching communities and populations wherever they may sit within the state. So it's been a really great for us, and we really feel like it's helping us to make some headway in addressing the digital divide, but more importantly, even for us, from where we can deliver benefit to community, is making this connection to financial inclusion.
Thank you, Kathy. That was a very interesting slide to see the increase in adoption, right, across devices and use of online services, right, really highlighting the need for folks to really have the tools and the skill set to really continue to develop that. I'd love to hear from both of you how you see financial institutions and research, and the research that you all are doing in NEFE, Billy, is wonderful. What role banks, for example, and maybe even fintech companies and research have in really promoting digital inclusion and digital equity?
Well, I'm just going to be a little frank and plain with this comment. I think when financial institutions and financial educators stop sort of advocating for their one-stop solution to solving these problems and approach the topic with expertise and humility, with a more collaborative intent, then you can truly serve the broader community. And I say that because, you know, there's always a vested interest to sort of say, oh, my idea is the best idea, so you should give us the funding, and maybe have more, you know, use data to sort of make the case in a more clear way. But you have to have quality, thoughtful data and inclusive data. And that means you need to ask those that you're serving. It means you need to go into communities and ask people what it is they need and what it is they want to know and how they want to access that. And they may not know the answer to that, but until you ask, how will you know? And philanthropy in particular, I would assume financial services is this way as well, but I'll speak for philanthropy. This is the industry I've worked in for 20 years, is we're not typically very humble. We tend to think, well, we have the money, so we have the answers. Or we have an idea, here's money to go execute my idea. Instead of just saying, this organization is doing good work, here's dollars to do more work. Can you tell us what you learned? You know, I think we need to listen more. I think that will go a long way. I know that's not a very practical answer to the question, but fundamentally, that's why we haven't made more progress, in my opinion, is that we haven't asked communities directly. We go in with thinking we know the answer or the solution without asking and engaging and being thoughtful about what that looks like, and trying to truly understand the obstacles and the systems that are designed to exclude. And let's sort of shed light on that. And I think better data can do that.
Kathy.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. You know, I'd like to echo Dr. Hensley's statement about collaboration and bringing humility to the process. That's one thing that I'm particularly proud about this partnership, is that we had done some significant research and had some discussions with multiple organizations about what we were looking to accomplish. And we knew what we were looking to accomplish, but we didn't necessarily have a directive or a clear approach to how we might get there. And so I think that the success of the partnership with us was really driven by working to try to find the right partner, and knowing the landscape a little bit, but really then engaging even before a grant was submitted. What does your programming look like? How do you deliver it? This is what we're thinking about, but can you do that? And EveryoneOn, Norma, you saying, oh, here's what we can do, or here's what we can't do, or here's what we've tried, or this hasn't worked, but this has, or we're pretty good here, we're not as good here. And just having that open dialogue and that conversation before any applications were submitted or funds hit the street was I think mission critical. I also think that then as we moved along, specifically what could we do as a company, and maybe what could other funders in the financial services industry do? We assigned a point person in our team, Lucina Gallegos, and then also Tiffany Brown, to specifically work with EveryoneOn and to make sure we had a relationship there, right? So we didn't just have that early conversation and then we're going to give the funding and we keep going, that there's an ongoing dialogue, that we could have some discussions as we move forward, that we could bring the perspective of what we were looking for, but also, hear the perspective. We've also talked about engaging our employees, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we will, because we're still kind of getting things up and going. But that's a place where financial institutions can bring a lot of skill and engagement with our partners, because if we can bring our digital people, as an example, to conversations to help individuals understand security and why things are set up like they are and what people need to be thinking about, or we can bring our business line partners to talk about how to access things online or where to go, right? It helps bring that human face and that human perspective, because let's face it, for many populations, banks are these big places. They can be scary, they can be untrusted. And so if we bring our people as well as the digital component together, that's a way I think we can demystify the financial services industry as a whole, have the people behind the screen come to life, and really help people to learn and understand and move forward. And I think that's where we are uniquely qualified in this space.
Thank you both for sharing all those wonderful, I'm going to call them tips, right? Part of our goal today was talk about tips for collaboration, cross-sector partnership, how we drive digital equity, financial equity. So I'm just going to list a couple off because they really resonated with me, the work that we do at EveryoneOn, and just speaks, I think, to our collective interest to really drive change in an inclusive and an equitable way. So when we think about the role that financial institutions, but even beyond, right, other companies, the government, educational institutions, philanthropic institutions, I think what you all said was spot on. We need to approach the work with humility. We need to have qualitative and inclusive data. So go to the communities that we are attempting to serve and work with. Listen to them more, engaging trusted organizations. Kathy, I heard you loud and clear there, and that's something that we've also learned from our research and in conversations with the communities that we serve, that it's, folks really trust community anchor institutions. So engaging those type of organizations, whether they're nonprofits, libraries, et cetera, to really serve as a tool, vehicle to get the information out. And employee engagement, that's such a, I think, key aspect to this here, because your employees come from the communities that you're also attempting to serve and work with, right? So there's an opportunity there. And then lastly, collaboration. So thank you for sharing those as opportunities to really drive the kind of change that we're seeking to make. So we're down to just a few minutes, and we do have a few questions in our Q&A box here. So I will read them off, and feel free to answer them. The first one is for Dr. Hensley. What were some of the barriers you faced when developing your ecosystem? Any tips on how to get started with building our digital equity ecosystem?
Well, it's such a messy, complicated thing to try to organize at first. We sat down and we started talking about what are all of the factors that influence your financial life, and we tried to start doing that, because what the inspiration for this is that there was such a dichotomous sort of either or discussion happening instead of saying yes and or in addition to. And so that motivated the ecosystem. And by that I mean, some people said, well, financial education is what you need to solve the financial woes of your clients or your students. And some people said, no, you need better consumer protections. And some people said, no, you need access to better products. And, the list went on and on and on. And there was no sort of discussion. And NEFE was like, yes, it's all of that. Why does it have to be a versus mentality? Why can't it be sort of a thoughtful way to do that? And so what was tricky at first was trying to articulate it in a way, sort of from a collective impact mentality of what, how do you sort of pull all this together to sort of create a personification of a person's financial life. And so we then started field testing it with going out to practitioners, advocates, educators, researchers, and getting their sort of peer review, if you will, which is the typical sort of research process. And this is the third version of this. Within the last couple of years, it's went through 3 evolutions. And the first one was sort of linear, and it went sort of across. The researchers loved it and the practitioners hated it. The second one looks like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it looked like financial well-being was something you got to, instead of saying it's a continuum. You know, there's all kinds of financial well-being, whether it's weak or strong. And the practitioners liked that one visually, but the researchers didn't. And so this version was a very intensive cyclical review process where we would take it on the road and get feedback. And then the data and the research that's necessary to sort of understand that there is actually a difference between, for example, financial education and financial information. Financial information is like a tip to help you make a decision, like a one-time off thing, like saving money on vacation or buying versus leasing a car. Financial education helps you manage that day-to-day, you know, the CFO of your financial life comment that I made earlier. So it was really taking all of these things that were all happening, and everyone was trying to measure each one of those things as the single solution to improve financial well-being, and then make sense of that. And it was a work in progress, and I can guarantee you that it will continue to evolve as our understanding and as the data become clearer. It was a lot of work.
You know, Joshua, we don't have too much context to your question, but something that I'll add to what was just shared as well is, and actually is around the data, right? Like, I'm sure that those organizations that you're attempting to include as part of your ecosystem have their own data related to the respective services that they provide to the communities that they serve. So leaning on that to also help inform your broader digital equity goals could be one way to start, but also engage these organizations who may still not see the direct correlation between what they're doing and digital inclusion work. Hope that's helpful. We have another question around Union Bank's philanthropic priorities. So we understand that there's a merger that is taking place, or that has been officially already started. What are your priorities for California and beyond in 2023?
Right. So yes, this is true. Union Bank has been acquired by U.S. Bank, and legal day 1 was on December 1st. So we're proud members of the U.S. Bank family now, and very eager to leverage the skills and commitment to community of both our companies. So there is a very robust community benefits plan that has been put together that is hit the streets, a $100 billion investment over 5 years. And so we're eager to put those resources to work. And major components of that community benefits include small business, home ownership counseling resources, philanthropic resources focused on housing and economic development. And digital inclusion is integrated into that community benefits plan. So we know it's a very important issue, has been discussed here in community, and that will be a commitment going forward. It is necessary to have all our systems integrated, and we'll be looking to deploy those in 2023. And more information around specific investments will be forthcoming. But that community benefits plan, which is a public document out there, the highlights of it are available online. So that's why online continues to be very important. And all the specifics are outlined there. So housing, economic development, digital literacy, all very important.
Thank you. And we do have one more question, and this could be for both of you, understanding that NEFE is not a traditional grant-making organization, but nonetheless, I think, you know, Billy, I'm sure you have some things to share. And the question is, what are a couple of performance indicators you track to determine success of the programs you invest in?
Yeah, you're right. We're not a traditional grant maker like you've heard of most foundations. We're actually an operating foundation, which means we invest in our own work and then provide everything for free, basically, as our charity. But we also do give money, and we've invested and given dollars to EveryoneOn because we believe in their work. But most of our funding goes directly to research, and so we ask people what is the contribution this is making? And so we ask them to do a little mini literature review, so homework, and look at how can this contribute to the gaps in what we know. And then we ask them how will they help disseminate that information, because it's important to us that, to not just put it in a research journal and it goes on a shelf and it might eventually trickle into the, practice. We ask what their plan is, and we spend a lot of money putting it out there in front of people like you, so you can use the data. And then most of our research projects are actually, sort of robust, rigorous information about, improving even the questions that are being asked. Are the measures, for example, one project that's underway right now, are the measures of financial literacy that are currently people are using, were those even developed with inclusive measures? Is it just measuring an upper middle class white experience, or is it actually or does it truly measure the financial knowledge and literacy and capability that we think it does? We should know soon, and if it doesn't, we're going to figure out how to improve that. So that's what we do. That's how we look at the potential of what it can do in the research, and then to sort of compound further research, and then also, does it have a practical application? And not everything does, and sometimes the findings are just, we didn't learn too much, and that's the chance you take with any investment. But we spend a lot of time trying to get that out there. And so what does this mean for practice in the short term and the long term? And we try to evaluate that well up front, and we work closely with the researchers on that. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Billy. Kathy, do you want to take a minute to answer?
Sure. I'll just speak specifically to this partnership with EveryoneOn to speak about the outcomes that we came and agreed upon. First, since we're investing in a program focused on linking to federal broadband, we are trying to track number of households that are going to be enrolled in a low-cost internet service program because of the hotline, and the number of people that are getting information. Sometimes people get information and then noodle on it. So, both those numbers are important to us. We're also looking to find out how many devices are distributed, so that we know that computers are getting in the hands of individuals. But then as we go to the digital connections training program, we're looking at some metrics around increasing the basic understanding of and comfort using technology, increased understanding of comfort of communicating and staying connected via digital platforms, and then basic understanding and comfort of accessing resources. And then the final is kind of the number of organizations that are getting this cross training around and getting digital awareness around the digital divide and local solutions, and also that organizations are connected into legislative and advocacy efforts for closing the digital divide. So those are what we're tracking for this particular effort.
Great. Thank you both so much. And I know we're just a minute over, so we're going to wrap up. And I want to thank Billy and Kathy for joining us today to have this wonderful conversation. Really appreciate all your insights and also your partnership and investment, EveryoneOn. Thank you so much. With that, we'd like to also thank you, our audience members that are still holding on a minute after. Really appreciate you joining us and telling us a little bit about yourself. Always feel free to reach out to us at EveryoneOn. We'd love to explore partnerships with you, have conversations, and tell you more about our work. And this is just a quick slide on someone that actually we trained through our partnership with Union Bank, Anna from Los Angeles. And, this is why we're all doing this work, right? Every single one of us here, this is why we're doing it, to ensure that people have access to critical tools and information and anything they need to really build the lives that they want for themselves. So with that, again, thank you. We're in our middle also of our end of year campaign. If you're interested in donating to our work, please visit us online at everyoneon.org. Thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.